All right, here we go. So I am kneading my baby blue fondant, and I'm gonna roll it out. This is the mat, if you guys remember, I bought at the Walmart for like $2, and I used it to make, I believe it was a 6 or a 5 by 4 or 5 by yeah. So I was using the inch squares to get an even cut for my bow, and I'm using a paper towel and I'm inserting it in the middle because that way that as it dries it doesn't fall and it will stay nice and open. And then I did like a pleat design to like kind of make like the ruffles in the middle of the bow. And then see, I'm just making like a pleat, and then see, you get like that really pretty the folds inside. The first one didn't come out, but the second one came out really good, and I'm okay with that because not everything's perfect. And then I'm just putting a little extra water in between the middle of the bow to hold it together and so they can dry. Now I'm going to do the center of the ribbon, and I did a 2 by it looks like I did a 2 by 4 and I kind of did the same thing. I did like a fan fold, like you know how you take a piece of paper and you like fold it over and over. That's kind of what I did, and then I had like a really pretty pleat effect, so that's what I did. And then I kind of like when you do the billowing effect, I kind of like scrunched it up like that and just wrapped it around the center of the bow, and it has this really pretty pleat effect. And so I'm taking my little ball tool just to kind of up some of the spaces on the one side of the bow that was like falling. But I love the pleat style in the middle. So I'm taking my cake board, and I had to cover it in foil, and I'm putting my cake on. I used a Wilton cross pan. They had them at Easter time. I was stupid not to get one, but I had to order another one. If you want, I can insert a link in the description box on Walmart, from Walmart.com, where I got the cake pan. I think it was only like $7 or $8 or something like that. And then I'm doing like a crumb coat, really thin crumb coat, and then I'm going to pop this in the freezer. That was the first coat. And then as it's in the freezer, this is the insert that was in the pan. And this is going to be my template for the cross that's going to go actually on top of the cake, because I'm going to do a separate cross with like a pleated, not pleated, but like cross stitch, cross diamond pattern. So I'm just cutting this down to size. I measured it before I put it back in the freezer, and I'm just cutting it down to the middle cross size. And then I'm going to put that off to the side for later once I'm done cutting and trimming it. Okay, so I have my white fondant rolled out, and I tried to roll it out wider at the top and smaller at the bottom and still have enough coverage. So it was actually kind of tricky to do. I was short on one side, but that was okay because I knew I was going to put a blue ribbon around the cake. So I knew it would be covered. So I did have to stretch it out a little bit, but it was still perfectly fine. And so I'm just taking my fingers and taking my time and smoothing it out and getting the fondant up in the corners and just getting it nice and smooth. So now I'm taking my little handy dandy tool, my favorite tool, and I'm just trimming up the sides, taking the excess fondant off, and just making sure it's a nice, well, I really wasn't worried if it was a nice clean cut. I mean, it should be a nice clean cut. I knew I was going to put another layer around the bottom, so I wasn't too worried. So now I'm taking my quilted embosser. That was the word I was looking for earlier. and I'm making the pattern on some white fondant, and I'm using my template to make another cross. This thing isn't actually too bad to use. Now, I did get this from Wish, and I do notice that some of Wish's products, even though they're good and I use them all the time, I believe they're like 3D cut or printed. Sometimes the edges aren't that sharp, and trying to actually match up the pattern was a little tricky. But I mean, it works, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you can tell, I mean, it could just be user error, which I could just be using it wrong, but it was kind of hard to kind of match the quilted pattern up a little bit. But so here I am cutting my template out, or cutting my cross out, and using, again, I love this tool so much. I talk about this tool all the time. Maybe I should put a link for it down below at Michael's so people know what to look for if they go to buy it. I love it so much. Okay, so I'm adding some water to the top of the cross, and I'm laying my cross down, trying to work quickly to get it nice and even. I kind of felt like my cross was a little off, but it looked a little sideways and crooked, but it could have just been my eyes too. So now I'm taking my veining tool, and I'm just making those lines a little bit deeper so you can see them a little bit better. Like that side over there, the embosser tool really didn't go through very well. So I'm just taking my veining tool and following the lines just to make them a little bit more noticeable. So now I'm taking the blue fondant that I had left over, and I am going to be making the ribbon that is going to go around the cake. So I'm like cutting the ends at an angle and just putting a little strip of water. I'm starting at a corner and just taking it wherever it goes. I tried to make the line, the ribbon, as long as possible, and just making sure it's standing up and wrapping the cake in the strips of fondant. Okay, so now I'm taking, this is an old mold that I've had for a very long time. This is a Wilton mold, and I'm going to use the pearls, and I'm going to outline the cross in the pearls. So I'm taking my handy dandy tool. I made sure my fondant was inside, nice and neat. I smoothed the top off and then just pulled the pearls out. And then I'm going to just outline the cross. I already have some done. I'm just putting a strip of water along the edge and putting some on the back of the pearls and just going around the cross. So before I do anything else, I want to make the tails to the bow that we made earlier. So I'm again just using my mat, and I'm cutting out a piece of fondant that's even enough for the tails. I look to see how wide I made it. Now I'm just cutting a triangle out of the bottom, doing the pleating style at the top. I'm going to make 2 of them. I have the ribbon or the bow just placed. I just have it sitting on top of the cake for now. I haven't glued it down yet with water, and I like a movement on the ribbon tails. So usually what I do is I like try to make them look like they're flowing or something, and then I'll tack them down that way. So I'm just placing the bow, seeing if I like it in that space, making sure it's in the center, it's even, and then that's when I'll take some water and put everything down in its permanent place. All right, it's time for my favorite part, some pearl dust. So this is just plain white pearl dust. I actually need to buy some more. I use white a lot. So I'm going to cover all the white areas, of course, in the white pearl dust, and just make it look so super pretty with a nice shimmer. And then when I'm done that, I'm going to take some of the pearl dust, and then I'm going to take some of the blue and make a light blue pearl dust. And then of course I'm going to cover all of the blue on the cake in the light blue pearl dust. So I kind of made a last minute decision. I had made, if you've seen the cupcake toppers that go with this cake, if you've seen that video, you will know that I made tons of little itty bitty blue and white flowers to put on the cake. Well, at a last minute decision, I decided I really didn't want the flowers. I was kind of playing with them after I cleaned my cake board off, and I didn't really care for the look of them. So I was looking and I said, you know what, I had took the sugar pearls out because I was actually going to put the sugar pearls inside the quilted pattern, but the quilted pattern was a little big, so I left it alone. But it had these really pretty white pearl hearts, and I had started putting them on, but then I'm like, yeah, you know what, I kind of like it plain. But since they were already set, I kind of had to already, like, I had kind of committed to it already, and without pulling them off and messing up the cake. So I didn't go too overboard, but I've just put a few of the hearts around the cross. Now I'm using my most wonderful plunger letter cutters that Miss Kara gave me, and I love them so much. And I'm cutting out my friend's son's name. His name is Ethan Joseph, and I'm putting his name along the bottom of the cake board, and that's it. But it's not it until you add a sparkly top coat of white pearl dust. Of course.